Hi there, folks. Welcome to Behind the Bean, Episode 4. I am, of course, Bean, and today's game will be probably what most people have been waiting for, if not all of them. But that was yesterday, a game I created exactly 2 years ago for the J's Games Casual Gameplay Design Competition number 9, which happened to have the theme of Friends. This game is probably the most important one I've made. I was thinking about it during a very transitional part of my life after I've finished all of school and I'm just starting to be a man and going to the work world. And I moved out to the other side of the country and I didn't really know anybody. And I had all day, every day, to think about how much I used to enjoy things that I can't do anymore. And so this game was supposed to be a way for me to understand that the best times are, of course, not just in the past, they're wherever you feel like making them. And so that's the spark that started this game. At first, the game was designed to be a very complex set of interactions, maybe 10 to 16 different keys on the keyboard that would each do something different, and you would learn how to do them, and by the end of the game, you'll be pressing them in a sequence over and over, and that would spell out a message, and if you look down at the keyboard, you would see you're spelling out something very hopeful for the future. And I quickly realized that that's just going to be far too complex if I'm going to have a bunch of other people play this game. So I simplified it all the way down to 4 keys, actually just 3, because the down key doesn't really do anything. And all 3 of those keys are just arrows that have a meaning attached to them. So there's not even any dialogue in the game because everyone speaks in the arrows that they want you to press, or the arrows that will communicate exactly what's going on in that moment. So in this regard, the message that you would have been spelling out before physically with your hands is spelled out through the gameplay as you get further. This also allowed the interaction itself to be a metaphor for moving through life, because you press forward to move forward and you press back to look back. And perhaps you can think of using the up key as being uplifted, but that's kind of a weak argument. I started out designing the game knowing that I wanted you to learn something specific from each scenario in the past, which would help you get through the present. And so I gave each friend in the game a different action to teach you. So the dog teaches you how to turn back, the friend teaches you how to jump, and of course the girl teaches you how to swing. There's a very particular attention to detail that I had with this game, mostly because of the 2-month time limit for the competition, but also because I wanted to emulate the way that your memories will hold on to specific details and forget a lot of other things. So for instance, some memorable moments that were created for this game were the sound of rain, or the heat and the warmth of running on rooftops, the exhilaration of swinging, the way that you breathe just by standing still, and how long it takes to turn around. These are all things that I really wanted to be particular, and I guess the one thing that a lot of people didn't like was how long it takes to walk in the snow. But, I don't know, you should try it sometime. It takes a little while. To list all of the inspirations that went into this game would be a lost cause, because there's just so much that went into making this, but, speaking in terms of cinematography, I absolutely love the work of Spike Jonze and Michel Gondry and all of their dreamlike things that they do, and the way they take gravity and they flip it and they'll just turn worlds into different environments. There's also this cartoon called Danny and Annie, and it's like 5 minutes long and it immediately brings you to tears and you can't stop crying the entire thing. And I'm laughing because it's just, I remember how much I was crying. Oh my goodness, this animation. You should go watch it. Go watch the animation. There's this one transition where the wife is dealing with the death of her husband. It was so simple and it was just so powerful with just one cross dissolve that I said, I need to do that in a game. So when I saw this, the seed was planted and I was going to do something like this in a game of my own. There was also a game called Estamos Pensando, which means we are thinking, and unfortunately that game is not available anymore. The author has taken it down. Basically, It was the first game that showed me that you can actually treat death like a serious issue. It's not just something where you have extra lives and you'll come right back. You're allowed to communicate more serious issues through a video game, and that kind of changed the way I would design games for the rest of my life. Also, I used to be extremely obsessed with Spider-Man. I still am a little bit, but back then I was just going crazy. So this one day I decided to create this prototype which would capture the sensation of swinging through Manhattan as Spider-Man, but in 2D. And so in order to create an extra sense of thrill, I decided to turn the camera instead of Spider-Man, which added all of this extra dynamic movement to everything. And I even rotated Spider-Man as well to add even more of a contrast. And that's precisely where the idea for swinging in the game came from. And that's all thanks to Peter Parker. The effects on the unpassable dark wall in the game is actually just a rotated graphic from an unreleased game that I had made in college called Volcano, where you're this bat who has to escape an erupting volcano by dodging magma and rocks and all these other crazy things. So that effect was just turned sideways and changed to blue. As for all of the things that happened throughout the game, I can't say any of them literally happened to me, but all of the things portrayed in the game are kind of like a remix of different moments from my life. So for example, I haven't had a girlfriend leave me at an airport and have me watch her fly away. But I have had a girlfriend leave me, and I have had a friend leave me at an airport. So I mix those things together into this Frankenstein of feelings that, that's kind of weird to me because it means a whole bunch of different things just by showing one scene. But that's what made it so powerful for me. There's actually one scene in the game that was added solely for the purpose of avoiding confusion, which is right after your friend defends you from the bullies. It's a scene where he's showing you how to climb a tree to see this amazing sunset, and that's there because without it, you would first see him confronting the bullies, and then you would immediately see that he's been hurt and he has died. And I didn't want you to think that he died in the fight, because that's just not what happened. So I added this entire tree climbing scene solely to avoid confusion. Of course, I also put in some personal touches, such as the main character being ill-prepared with the wrong footwear, showing that he's probably not the type to climb trees, which is kind of similar to me as well. I mean, I also wouldn't be jumping off of rooftops or even jumping off of a swing, so I guess I don't live very dangerously, but it's nice to escape into those moments when playing. There's a few other subtle details that I put into the game, such as all of the bullies being green, which is because they're actually related to the friend, because they're just different shades of green. And that might explain why he has the courage to stand up to them, because they're family. Maybe he knows that they'll listen to him. Also, the nurse that gives you the bad news in the hospital is colored purple because she's not related to anyone else in the game. And of course, she would go on to inspire the Purple family in my next game, Basketball. So it's kind of interesting that that game came from just her. I think one of the most powerful scenes for players was at the funeral, where you're at your friend's coffin staring at him, a little bit of his hair peeking out of the edge, and his mother enters the frame and tells you it's time to move on by telling you to go to the right, and if you press it, nothing happens, and she repeats herself, and there's this harsh reverb on her voice like it's echoing throughout your mind, and you just don't move. That's actually not interactive. That is just a cutscene that you're watching where she happens to give you an input command that, whether you press it or not, will not change anything. And unfortunately, I didn't start thinking out of the box like this until the end of the development when there's only a few days left, so would have liked to add more interesting things like this, but it's still in there a little bit, such as the beginning of the game where the dog is trying to wake you up out of your unconsciousness, or where the nurse gives you bad news, and again, the down key doesn't do anything. There's parts of the game where you can fall down a pit, and you're actually given infinite tries. It just spits you right back out from the heavens, and you come down and you get to just try again. And that came about because logically you've already proven you can get that far, so why should you have to start from the beginning and retry? And that would probably also offset the momentum of the scene itself. And to be honest, that was just a feature that I threw into the game when I was testing it out because I wanted the character to jump right back into the gameplay. So whenever he fell off the screen, I would just send him right back to the top, and it felt so nice I decided to keep it in, and I polished it up to make it look nice. The game has 3 different endings. which are all positive because there's just too much depressing stuff going on throughout the whole game for me to end it on a sour note. But I didn't want to give any weight to one ending over another, so I wanted a player to have an equal chance of coming across any of the 3 endings. The way this works is that the game chooses which ending to show you based on what time of day you're playing the game. And the only way to know this is a subtle clue towards the middle of the game when you're in the waiting room waiting to see how your friend is doing. And if you look at the clock, you can see it's separated into 3 different colors, and each color is the color of each of your friends. So some people found that, some people didn't, but it was kind of fun for me to watch people figure out how to get the different endings. On top of this also brings the story into your own world, and helps hopefully make it just a little bit more approachable and relatable to your own life, because your life is now in the game. A lot of this game is cinematic, not interactive at all. Probably more than half of it if you're fast enough in the interactive parts. The game was actually supposed to all be interactive, everything, even the close-ups and the strange shots, and you would still be using the 4 keys to interact, but I realized very quickly that that was just going to be both unclear what the arrow keys would be doing, as well as inconsistent because now the keys would have different actions, whereas currently right key always does one thing, up key always does another, etc. So unfortunately, I had a lot of animating to do, and you have a lot of time during gameplay of sitting back and watching, but hopefully not too many people were turned off by this. And since there were only 2 months to make this game, I didn't exactly have time to do everything I wanted to. In fact, the last thing that I did before releasing the game was add 2 smokestacks to the buildings in the rooftops level, which is kind of insignificant, but I really wanted these tiny little details to be in the game. And if I had a little bit more time, I would have added even more visuals, such as a bunch of falling leaves in the swinging level, so that whenever you swung back and forth, you would kick up some leaves and they would be filling the sky, which would have been pretty awesome. So unfortunately that didn't happen. A lot of people asked me about the dog story, why it's so short compared to the other 2, and I actually had a much longer story with the dog, just as long as the other 2, where you would be having dinner with him and he steals food off your plate, and then you're playing fetch with him in a park, and then you throw the stick, and then he never comes back. There was also supposed to be a bunch of interweaving stories where you would get a flashback from one story into the other, and that never happened. So all 3 stories in the past are isolated incidents. I did make one piece of concept art for a scene with the girlfriend where it's raining and she pushes you into a puddle, and you would get a flashback to the bullies pushing you into the puddle before your friend goes to save you. So that stuff never made it in. The music for the game was designed for the emotions of each scene, and not so much what you're doing, even though the emotions are tied to what's going on. So for the Friend song, I composed the single grainy synthesizer that you're supposed to hear for the first time by itself when you're at his funeral. So I wanted to make sure that that isolated melody was hidden until that moment, so I added drums and a guitar riff on top of that, so you were paying attention to the rooftops. And then once you get to that funeral scene, then you still have this recurring melody stuck in your head, but a lot of things have been removed, which was symbolic of having your friend removed from your everyday experiences. The girls' music was actually composed on a found piano in the middle of my city, and I just sat down and started hitting keys, and once I found something I liked, I recorded it so I remember it, and I happened to find that footage, so here's that. So, that was my game, but that was yesterday. A very personal game, a journey into my mind, heart, body, soul, etc. I don't know if I'd be able to make a game like this again, just because I'm not in that mindset anymore. I'm a grown adult now, and so I guess that means I'll be making more adult games, or perhaps, since I'm so young at heart, I'll just keep making more childish games as I keep going. I don't know, we'll see. But if you played this game, and if you've enjoyed it, thank you very much. I've gotten a lot of feedback over the last 2 years, people thanking me for making this game. It helped them cope with issues in their lives. Some people use it as therapy, and that's just phenomenal. I mean, I never expected it to help anyone but me, and it's helped people all around the world. I mean, it's kind of a great feeling. I don't know if it's helped me, but I guess that doesn't matter as much now that I know I've helped other people. Strangers, absolute strangers I've made cry. It's a great feeling. Not that they're crying, but that they're getting past hard times in their lives. So yeah, thank you for playing, and thanks for watching. Bye!